Good. Hello, year four, whether you're watching this in the morning or whether you're watching this in the afternoon. I hope you've had a good day. I hope you're having a good week. Today is Thursday, the 21st of January, and we're going to carry on reading our book on the rotten Romans. So yesterday we read all about Roman leaders, and there were a few sort of interesting facts about some of the Roman leaders. I wonder if you can take this time just to think about maybe some of the things we spoke about. Or what you heard me read, I should say. For example, what did Julius Caesar give us that we still use today? You have to excuse my hair. I have washed it. Whenever I wash my hair, it goes all a bit fuzzy and a bit fluffy. So I haven't got any gel or hair products in it at the moment. So I apologise for the state of my hair. Okay, yesterday I mentioned that we are going to be looking at children during the Roman period. And this chapter is called Rotten Roman Childhood. Okay, so it's going to be interesting. I think I asked you the question yesterday. Some of you may be looking forward to this. Some of you may want to be a Roman child, go back in a time machine and be a Roman child. Some of you may not. Okay, children had a very tough time in the age of the rotten Romans from the moment that they were born. One writer, Cyrenius, described how each newborn child was laid on the earth and allowed to cry for a while before it was washed and clothed. Only the fit survived. That's very similar to what the Greeks used to do as well. There was a Greek part of Greece called Sparta, and the Spartans used to do something similar. If they found that the baby was not weak or not strong enough, they would discard the child. And similar, this is what the Romans are now doing. They're leaving the child, once the child is born, they're leaving it outside on the ground for a while. And if the child survives, they take that child in and clean it. And if the child doesn't survive, then that's very sad. Now, some of the Germans in the Roman Empire gave their newborn children an even worse test. They dunked the child in cold water. If the baby came out purple with the cold or shivering, then it was a weakling. It wasn't worth bringing up, so it was left to die. And again, very harsh. I think I would go purple if I jumped into a pool of ice. So I wonder how many children did survive. Now, girls were named 8 days after they were born. Boys were named on the 9th day. Girls would usually take their father's name, but change the us on the end of it to an a. So, for example, the daughter of Julius became Julia. The daughter of Claudius became Claudia. Flavius was the father of Flavia, and so on. Children would probably have pet names or nicknames. One girl was known as Trifosa, and that means delicious. The Celts' names had their own meanings. Boudica meant victory, Carmandua meant white filly, and Grata meant welcome. Then if you survived your birth and you could live with your name, you had to face the terrors of the rotten Roman schools. Now, suffering school children, the good, the bad, and the awful. Good. Schools cost parents money, so only the parents who could afford to send their children to school sent them. If you were poor, you could miss going to school altogether. Bad. Slave children didn't go to school. They were born slaves and belonged to their master. Awful. Poor children missed school but had to work twice as hard for parents. If you didn't, your parents might just decide to sell you. It was illegal to sell free children as slaves, but this didn't stop poor parents from doing it. There was not much chance of them being caught. So just imagine it. If you were a poor child living in the Roman times, and let's face it, there were more poor people in these times than there were rich. So there were more children not at school. There were more children on the streets and more children being sold as slaves. So if you were lucky enough to go to school, um, then there. Right, good. Education was divided, rather as it is today, into primary, secondary, and college. Bad. Most children only went as far as primary. Awful. For laziness in primary school, you'd get the cane or a beating if the teacher didn't have a cane handy. One poet described his bullying like this: his mouth's no good, but he has a hard fist. Why doesn't he become a boxer instead? Yeah, good. Primary schools usually just had 10 to 12 children in the whole school. Bad. That was not enough to pay a teacher's wage. So the poor teacher had to do another job, maybe working in a workshop. Awful. The Romans didn't have the vigor zero, so that made sums rottenly difficult to teach. So here's a question for you. Can you add L, X, 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 V, I, and X, I? Can you add them two together? I'll show you it on the page there. I'm purposely covering up the answer. Okay. And the answer is C, which is 100. Good. At least school children had their own goddess. Her name was Minerva. The holiday for the goddess was in March. After the holiday, the school year began. Bad. Each child had to provide their own wax tablets and stylus. And a stylus is a very sharp pen that would be used to scribe the letters into the wax. Their pen and ink, their paper rolls, and abacus. And an abacus is a counting frame. It's one of them frames that you have, and you've got beads on it, and you flick them over to the other side. It's almost like an analog calculator. Now, awful. For a serious offence in the secondary school, a flogging with a leather whip while other pupils held you down. So let's say you were in secondary school and maybe you got caught into a little bit of a fight, or you told the teacher to leave the classroom or something like that, something serious. You would have been held down by your friends and the teacher would have whipped you. Very painful. Now, good. Schools closed every ninth day for the market. It was probably too noisy to teach on market days. The bad. Primary schools were pretty boring. You study mainly the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. It's RWA, but there we are. Awful. At secondary school, you had to study mega boring grammar and literature, with some geography and, of course, horrible history. By the time you got to college, you had to study public speaking. The Romans believed that good talkers make leaders. Do you agree with that? A grim life for girls. Through most periods of history, it's been harder being a woman than it has been a man, and it was no different in Roman Britain. Roman girls were lucky if they lived. If you give birth to a boy, look after it. But if it's a girl, then let it die. And there was a letter from someone called Hilarion, who was a Roman citizen, to his wife. Men weren't happy with the idea of educated women. I hate a woman who reads, wrote Juvenal in the 1st century AD. Roman women had to be controlled from an early age. They were given a lucky charm at birth. But why? Because they didn't have a man of their own to protect them. When a baby girl was 8 days old, she was taken to a special ceremony. A gold or leather heart was hung round her neck. She would keep it through her childhood. When a Roman girl was 14, she was ready for marriage. Who said so? Her father. A husband would be chosen for her. Who chose this husband? Her father. And what if the girl didn't like her father's choice? It was just tough luck. She had to marry him anyway. On the evening before the wedding, a special event took place. The girl placed all her toys and childhood clothes on the altar of the lyres, the household gods. She also took off her lucky charm, because now she had a husband to protect her. The bride always wore a white woolen tunic, and the tunic is like another name for a dress or overall. It was held at the waist, and a woolen belt tied it in a special knot. She wore a bright yellow cloak and sandals. Her head was covered with a flame-colored veil. Roman women wore makeup. They used chalk to whiten their necks because pale skin was supposed to be a sign of beauty. If a woman's lips and cheeks weren't red enough, they would use a reddish earth called ochre. Women were expected to remove hair from their legs as well as from under their arms. They rubbed hair off with a stone or used a cream to dissolve it, and it's a wonder that creams didn't dissolve the skin too. One hair remover consisted of the blood of a wild she-goat mixed with sea palm and powdered viper. Then if you wanted to stop the hair growing back again, you would have to rub on the blood of a hare. And if a girl's eyebrows weren't dark enough, then she might have to use metallic stuff called antimony. No antimony, the girls used ashes. Imagine walking around with mud on your face, chalk on your neck, and ashes for your eyebrows. If you got carried away, you would look more like a scarecrow. Okay, I'm going to stop there because we've read quite a bit there. The next is we're going to look at some Roman rotten stories related to, obviously, to the stories that the children would have heard when they were growing up in ancient Rome. So we'll look at that tomorrow. Okay, I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks for joining me for that read, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.